Konnichiwa. Today, we're going to talk about the particle ni, and in doing so, we're going to level up. What do I mean by that? In the past 7 lessons, we've learned quite a lot of basic Japanese structure. We can say quite a lot of things now if we have the vocabulary. But everything we can say is very, very concrete. We can talk about doing things and being things, which of course is the core of every sentence. But we also need to have some more sophisticated concepts at our disposal. Things like purpose and intention and transformation. So today we're going to look at uses of the ni particle, some of which are very concrete still, and some of which begin to take us into those more sophisticated areas. Now, you already looked at the ni particle, haven't we? And we know that in a logical sentence it marks the ultimate target of an action. So, Sakura ni boru o nageta means I threw the ball at Sakura. The ball is marked by o because it's the thing I actually threw. I am marked by ga, whether you can see me or not, because I am the one who did the action of throwing. That Sakura is marked by ni because she is the target of that action, in this case very literally. Now, the ni particle nearly always marks a target of one kind or another. So, if we are going somewhere, or sending something somewhere, or putting something somewhere, we use ni for that somewhere. So if A is going to B, then B is marked by ni. B is the destination, the target of that going. So, if I'm going to the park, I say, koen ni iku. If I'm going to the shops, I say, omise ni iku. So the literal, physical destination or target of movement is marked by ni. However, we can also mark a subtler kind of target. So we can say, omise ni tamago o kae ni iku. That's rings. I go to the shops to buy eggs. Omise is shops, shop is mise, and we put the honorific o on it because we give honor to the people who help us to have all the lovely things that we are lucky enough to have. Tamago and eggs. You might, if you're old enough, remember Tamagotchi, the little egg person that you raise. And kai is the e stem of kau, to buy. The e stem is a very special stem, and it can do lots of things, and it can also just be there on its own. Kai ni iku means in order to buy, for the purpose of buying. Now, you may be saying, I thought that logical particles like ni and ga and o can only mark nouns, and that's absolutely correct. Because one of the things that the e stem of a verb can do when it's on its own is turn that verb into the equivalent noun. It can do something else as well, but we'll talk about that another day. So, kai, the act of buying, is a noun. Just as in English, if we say, I like swimming, swimming is a noun. Swimming is a thing I like. And if we say, I go to the shop for the purpose of buying eggs, then that buying is also a noun. It's the thing we're going for. And kain is just like that. Shirokai is the thing we're going to do, and it's a noun, and it's marked by ni. So, you see that in this sentence we have 2 targets. The shops, or mise, is the actual physical target of our going to a place. And buying eggs is the reason for our going. So that's the emotional target, the volitional target. A more subtle kind of target than the physical place we're going to, but still a target. And it's possible to have 2 targets in the same sentence, both marked by ni, and that's exactly what we're doing here. So ni gives us the target of an action in the most literal sense, and also the volitional target, the actual aim of our action. Now, to get back to more concrete things, ni, which marks the actual location target of where we're going or where we're putting something, can also mark the place where a person or a thing is. So I can say, omise ni iku, I am going to the shops, I will go to the shops, and we can say, omise ni iru, I'm at the shops. I'll go to the park. I'm at the park. Now, you see, this is also a target, because in order for a thing to be anywhere, it must have gotten there at some point. So, ni can mark not only a future target, the place where I will go to, it can also mark a past target, the place where I went and where I still am. And we also use this for inanimate objects. Honwa, table, no ni, hano. The book is on the table. Way is a noun. And in this case, it means the on of the table. Way can mean up or over. In this case, it means on, and it's always a noun. So, in this case, the on of the table is the place where the book is. The past target of the book, to which it went, and at which it now remains. So, you can also mark the place where a thing is its past target. And the last aspect of ni that I want to look at is that ni can also mark the target of a transformation. Just as if A is going to B, ni marks B, the place where it's going. If A turns into B, becomes B, then ni also marks B, the thing it's becoming, the thing it turns into. So, if I say Sakura wa kaeru ni natta, kaeru is frog, and nano is a close cousin of Aru. Anu means be, Naru means become. So, Sakura wa kaeru ni natta. Sakura became a frog. Sakura turned into a frog. And ni marks the thing she became, the thing she turned into. Now, you may be thinking, how often do people turn into frogs these days? Now, granted, it isn't very often. However, this is a very important thing to learn, because there are various more everyday things that turn into other things, and also we use this form of expression much more in Japanese than we do in English. For example, kotoshi jinhassai ni naru. Kotoshi is this year. Jinhassai is 18 years of age. So you're saying, this year I become 18. Now, in English, we'd say that a little differently. We might say, I turn 18, or I'll be 18. But in Japanese, we say, I will become 18 years of age. And if the day is going to get cloudy, we might say, atode kumori ni naru. Kumori is cloudy. Kumo is a cloud. Kumori is the state of being cloudy, and both of them are nouns. We say, tomori ni naru. Which means become cloudy. In English, we could say that. We might be more likely to say get cloudy or something. But in Japanese, we use this become ninaru form of speech a lot of the time. So it's an important thing to learn. And I should just add here that in a case of an adjective, it works slightly differently. So if you want to say Sakura is beautiful, you say Sakura ga utsukushii. Utsukushii means is beautiful. But if we want to say Sakura became beautiful, we can't use ni, because utsukushii isn't a noun. It isn't a carriage, it's an engine, isn't it? So what do? What we do is what we discussed last week. We turn that adjective into its stem. So we take off the I and add ku, and that's all we need to do. That's how we use it. Sakura ga utsukushiku natta. Sakura became beautiful. Natta is the past of naru, because naru is a godan verb. It has to be a godan verb, because it doesn't end in iru or aru, it ends in aru. So now we know some ways of expressing subtler concepts like intention, purpose, transformation. And we have leveled up. Now, before I finish, I'm just going to give you one more carriage that we haven't seen before, and that's the ka, and this is very, very simple. The particle as you see, this is the kana he, but when we use this as a particle, we just pronounce it And it's a very simple particle. It's a one-trick pony, and it duplicates one and only one of the uses of ni. So when we say where we're going, A is going to B. We mark B with ni. We can also mark it with And that's the only thing does. As I say, it's a one-trick pony. It can't even mark the place where something has gone through and still is. It only ever marks the place a thing is going to. But it's very simple, and it's good to have another particle, another carriage added to your arsenal, isn't it? If you have any comments or questions, please ask them in the comments below, and as always, I will answer. If you'd like to join our learning community, please visit my Patreon. There's always something going on there. I'd like to thank my Gold Kokeshi patrons, my producer angels, and I'd like to thank all my patrons and supporters. Thank you for making all this possible. And thank you for attending this lesson. これからもよろしくお願いします. Class dismissed.